But also joining me in the studio, I'm delighted to say, is editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. Morning once again to you. Again, still surviving the heat. Well done. 1 hour done. Well done, everybody. Let's talk more about these migrants arriving. The figures are astonishing. 50,000 is going to hit today. It'll top 50,000 today on the official stats. Arriving, and that's one every 11 minutes since Keir Starmer announced he was going to, smash the gangs. Do you have any, this is a weird question, do you have any sympathy for Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, the fact that the numbers have gone up by 48%, so nearly 50% since they said they would deal with this issue and they were going to, talk to Macron, the EU, and do deals. They got rid of Rwanda deal. They were going to, border control, border security, tackling the source. Do you have any sympathy for them?
No.
Okay, there we go.
I think we all knew that this was going to happen. I think deep down that they knew that this was going to happen. They made it very clear that in terms of their approach to tackling this problem was a kind of mix of process, striking a few deals around the edges. Could they have really believed that this was going to drastically reduce the numbers, let alone properly get on top of this issue of illegal migration? I don't think they did.
They appointed a new border security czar.
No, exactly, and we've talked about nothing else since.
Done it?
It's obviously put the fear of God into those people traffickers. I'm sure they wake up every day in a cold sweat thinking about Yvette Cooper and some bloke with some epaulets.
They wake up every day in a cold sweat as they roll around in their €500 notes.
Quite.
In their five-star hotels.
And it's been, and this government has been very good business for them. That has certainly seemed to be the case. I think deep down, and you've talked about this many times, it's not clear they actually want to solve this problem. That's certainly not the impression you get from the policies they're pursuing.
So they're both unable and unwilling.
I think they want to manage it. I think they would love it if they could show that it had measurably reduced by a certain amount. But I think actually properly managing your own borders is something that they're constitutionally
they don't really believe in.
I
tell you, I've interviewed Yvette Cooper years back, and I remember asking, so how many should we allow in? Well, we can't put a number on it. Yeah. Well, you can put a number on it. Is it 10,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 200,000? Is it 1 million? Is it 10 million? I mean, give us a number, because there's a few billion people who want to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And
personally, I'd stay in France. I love Britain, but for the weather.
No, exactly. You'd be on a thingy in the other direction.
The weather and the wine. I'd stay in France. No, but that's the thing. But isn't this exactly the same as how they want to deal with things like the shoplifting and indeed the protests about that stop people talking about it online, criminalise people for putting up pictures of the shoplifters in their store or calling them or sending the police around if they call them scumbags, doing all of that and not actually tackling the real problem. Even we're going to get people out of their hotels because they're going to put them into houses and flats and no one will sodding well know we won't be able to track them down, so everyone will stop talking about it. Or we're going to basically go as quickly as we can through the backlog of people. Too many people will be granted asylum, and we're told all these people were genuine. Yeah, but these people have already been rejected for asylum in Germany and elsewhere, and we know a number of the people who get to stay here, some of the cases, and they're just tip of the iceberg cases of people who be allowed to stay. If you and I were in charge of that tribunal, they wouldn't be allowed to stay. It's insane. And you're a bleeding heart lefty in your heart of hearts, aren't you? Come on. You've just come round to sanity.
No, well, I think this particular issue is a matter of common sense as much as anything else. That you cannot have a situation in which illegal migration is just being facilitated by your own asylum system, and you cannot even deport someone if they come to the country illegally, rack up a series of charges while they are here, but still are granted asylum.
Then you have no meaningful control of your country's borders.
No, exactly.
But here's the thing. So the solution, when they're going to go through this backlog, and they're going to clear a load of the backlog, and they're going to clear a load of the backlog by basically granting indefinite leave to remain. They won't necessarily get asylum, but they'll be allowed to stay here to get off the list. And then they'll say they've solved the problem. But the problem will still be here, because there will still be a load of people here who came here illegally who we don't want to be here, who are not contributing. And no, they're not all engineers and astronauts. Yeah. So this is the thing. So they always... And I think the Tories did this a lot as well. There's this idea that you solve like the outside of the problem. It's like, if you've got like a completely burnt out derelict house, well, just put up a nice facade and then people can't see it, so it's okay. No, the problem is the burnt-out derelict house.
No, absolutely.
You need to repair the house.
Absolutely, and to lean into my bleeding heart left-wing views on this for a second, I think, and if the government are really concerned about the asylum issue rather than just using it as a virtue signal, you are going to completely destroy any public support whatsoever for legitimate asylum routes, defined asylum routes, Ukraine, Hong Kong, etc., the ones that had overwhelming public support, even though a lot of people came to this country under those schemes. people are going to start to get sceptical about the whole thing because it's come to be a byword.
Polls are very clear now. People are saying, shut the borders. Yeah. Full stop. Shut the borders.
And that's in response to this chaos.
Even to economic migrants, even to people who are legitimate, to say, no, we're done now. We're done. We're full.
And this is precisely the successive governments reaping what they sowed on migration by saying one thing and doing another, by completely losing control, by trying to do one thing and it having the reverse effect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a complete mess, which will, in the end, make the even a kind of reasonable, humane case for something like asylum schemes a lot harder to make, and for understandable reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, she was down at Epping talking to people upset about the Bell Hotel used as an asylum hotel. That's where these sort of protests first kicked off. She suggested housing asylum seekers in camps instead of hotels. Is that the answer? I mean, it seems to me to be a good part of the answer. Get them out of our local neighbourhoods and put them somewhere where life's not that great. You can't earn money. You're sitting in a camp for a couple of years.
I mean, it's one of those things where even that becomes sort of like moving the problem around. It's like when they kind of, moored up the Bibby Stockholm down in the southwest. It's still...
They were free to come and go in Bibby Stockholm.
But it's one of those things where even that becomes a problem in the local community. So it's the sort of thing where I think we've got to deal with these problems at source. Of course, there is a question about where do you house people. The hotels thing is completely run out of road. But people are already onto the HMOs and flat blocks being turned over. It's one of those things where I don't think there's almost any town or city in the UK now where you could have a council or the government or the Home Office attempt to requisition a property or attempt to take over a hotel for this purposes without there being almost instant backlash and protest.
Well, certainly in my local area, I mean, we had local hotels closed, after lockdown. They hadn't got any business, and then it was closed for a refurbishment, and then they reopened briefly, and then gone. And it's like they keep saying we're not open. Well, I see people going in and out. You're definitely open. And then when you go along, you realise, it's an asylum hotel. But again, no one in the local... I've not seen anything in the local paper. Nothing. No one was told about it.
Yeah,
like it's none of our business. None of our business.
The secrecy, I think, makes people even more furious. They're not even being told, let alone
Well, exactly.
asked.
Yeah, then people find out when they discover that there have been allegations made, and we've got of serious rape of a 12-year-old girl, and allegedly by some asylum seekers, in Epping. I mean, no wonder people are concerned. Let's also talk about the latest jobs figures. Unemployment figures came out today, and showing a fall in job vacancies. Not by much, but basically, it is not looking good on the economic front. Interestingly, wages have gone up by more in the public sector than the private sector. Pay growth, including bonuses, dropped from 5% to 4.6% in the same period. But it's higher for those in the public sector than in the private sector. Now, given that in the public sector, they have seen zero increase in productivity, but they're getting higher pay rises than those in the private sector. I'm not sure that's going to work out well, but also some stats out from the Office for National Statistics the Department of Work and Pensions, his latest stats out a couple of hours ago, showing that more than 1 million migrants are claiming universal credit in Britain. The majority are unemployed, because universal credit is a benefit you can claim whilst working. Largely people aren't doing it, and by the way, if you are working on universal credit, you're working 1 or 2 days a week. But new data reveals the July 2025 figure is the highest since universal credit was launched in 2013. It's just a record 8 million people are now on universal credit. Nearly half not expected to work. There's no requirement on them to even seek work, and more than 1 million of those are migrants. I mean, sorry, these are shocking figures.
No, absolutely, and it just across the whole gamut of what this government tried to demonstrate competence on, it's made things obviously worse. I mean, you have the Chancellor constantly trying to talk about, you can trust us with public spending, we're going to be responsible, we're not going to let it run out. First thing she does is she issues these pay rises, which naturally lead to people wanting to come back for more. That's within their interest to do so, but again, there's a two-way street here. The economy, again, we're growth. We've got a laser-like focus on growth. We've posted basically none. You've got the jobs tax brought in by the hike in national insurance, that is already bearing fruit. And then, of course, you've got another reminder of how if you lose control of the migration issue, but also what rights and benefits they're able to access when they arrive, again, it's going to further inflame it, because people think of the welfare system as something which is contributory, something which is not you don't automatically earn for the first second you step off, because we wouldn't expect that in any other country.
Yep.
So that's one of these things about the migration issue. It grates against people's sense of fairness as much as anything
And
else.
we talked about this. This is a really big British trait, this, yeah. And that's it. Most people who even pay in all their lives don't actually cover the costs of their benefits that they do get, whether unemployment or even pensions, actually. But that's a matter of the British people. We've made a system. But if you're told again and again and again that we desperately need more migrants and that they're an economic benefit to this country, why is anyone claiming benefits? You could say, oh, well, if someone's worked for 15 years and then they've lost their job, they're entitled to benefits for a couple of months while they look for a new job. Yeah, I've not got an issue with that. That's not what's happening. No, that is not what's happening. But also, why are we needing to import labour if we've got 8 million people on universal credit? And again, some of those people won't be able to work. A lot of them would be able to work. And frankly, if they weren't able to claim some benefits while working part-time, they'd be working full-time.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's another huge issue, which is a hangover from the last Tory government, but still something which Labour are not interested in dealing with. Is part of the reason that you've had successive Tory governments, now Labour, continuing to use the lever of migration. There's so many people who just aren't working, who could work. We all know this. People who've been put out to pasture whole towns, multiple generations.
Isn't it like something 40% of people in Birmingham of working age are claiming some sort of benefit?
There are so many shocking statistics.
What on earth's going on?
And it's a moral horror show. This is not good for those communities. It's not good for those individuals. We all know this, and it's clearly having perverse effects in relation to the labour market, migration, whatever. But there's just no one who seemingly has any idea or the kind of seriousness necessary.
Well, again, the people who make the decisions and the people who are in power on this stuff, whether it's civil servants or whether it's the politicians and their special advisors, the 25-year-olds, no offence, 25-year-olds, but not living in the same world. They're not impacted by any of this. It's not their jobs that are being taken. It's not that they're not competing for the same school places for their kids or for the same housing, whether it's council housing. They're not competing for the minimum wage. They're just not having to deal with the same issues. So that it's just not an issue. Again, care workers don't get paid very much. Well, you know what? I mean, we ported, hundreds of thousands of people to work in the care industry. We've still got a massive shortage. So how does that work? But also, wages aren't going to go up in the care working profession unless or until employers have to pay that wage because they can't get people otherwise.
No, exactly. And it's one of those things where, because you have governments who would rather treat symptoms rather than causes, or manage the PR of a particular issue, stop people talking about it, try and improve the optics by tinkering around the edges.
And that's the thing, isn't it?
We've got so many very deep structural problems as a society now. That will no longer do. And I think that's the impatience people are having with this government. It's like we all know they don't have the answers. And you suspect they know as well.
Yes, I do suspect that they know. They've been a little bit overwhelmed by quite how hard governing is. I mean, I would have guessed it was. But I mean, I'm thinking, next time around, whoever's in power, I think we've all got our fingers crossed for certain parties, whether or not they'd even be able to take this on. I could certainly see a point where I would just say, I will quit doing this. I will quit yapping on about it to actually try and do something about it. And I would be willing to take on the job of somebody, whether it was the migrants issue with the borders. And I don't care if everyone hates me on I can't go to the right dinner parties. I don't want to go. They're boring anyway. But I just think you need people who are willing to take the hit, who are willing to not just talk tough, but be tough and take the hit. And when they have some bleeding heart story on the front page of the BBC website, they don't back down and they stand by their guns and they do the right thing for this country. And I just think we're going to need somebody who is incredibly strong, incredibly brilliant, who's got the oomph for it. But so much about this is having the gut instincts, but also having the will. Having the will. And again, a lot of people putting their faith in Nigel Farage. A lot of people on the further right from him criticising him as being too moderate now. But again, you get elected in the centre ground. The question is, people talk about where is the centre ground. The Rory Stewarts and the Alistair Campbell think the centre ground is basically a Lib Dem in Taunton. I mean, I'm sorry, they're just completely in cloud cuckoo land about where the centre ground is. Centre ground of this country wants borders closed and migrants out, and scumbag shoplifters arrested and put in jail. And I mean, we are the centre ground, guys. We are the centre ground. But we need somebody who's got the You've got to take on the whole of the blob. You've got to take on the teachers. You've got to take on the civil servants, every single trade union. You've got to take on the doctors. You've got to take everyone on, and you've got to have the stamp of authority. Do we have anyone who can do that?
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? And it's certainly the question that's hovering over Nigel Farage, who's obviously a tremendous campaigner, very popular. Someone who can really set the political weather.
And has been right about everything.
And there are questions about, and I think there's also kind of question about, there's Farage himself, but also there's reform in general. Can it attract the kind of people who can really, produce policy, govern? Because at the moment, and this is not a criticism of them per se, they're still brand new, essentially. And the fact that they're in this position is staggering and historic in any case, but can they become a real sort of hub for people who are not only going to be prospective parliamentary candidates or people who are going to go on the media for them, but people who are doing the kind of unsung work, the kind of behind closed doors work, the kind of getting together a team that's ready to do exactly as you say, which is to really kind of take on the various vested interests that would obviously present themselves and try to block reform imposing its policies. The jury's still out on that one, but nevertheless, I think if they want to not only do well in opinion polls, maybe get a lot of MPs, maybe even win the next election, do they actually want to change the country? That's precisely the sort of thing that you would expect them to be doing at this point.
And would they have the mandate for it? That would be the interesting thing. Can we just talk also about, just briefly, about water shortfall? Apparently, the water shortfall has been declared as nationally significant. There's an amber heat health alert that is set to strike. We haven't got a heat wave yet. We need 3 days of, I think, 28 degrees in the south and 25 in the north before there to be a heat wave. I think mainly it's hot, it's lovely. People are going to the beach, having a nice time. People sitting in their gardens who can. A lot of people on holiday with the kids, having a lovely time. It used to be something we'd celebrate. Yay, we finally got summer. Genuinely, I can imagine all of the papers, BBC and everyone in town going, yay, heat wave, it's wonderful. But now it's, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. And then going on and on about, we've got this shortage of water. I tell you what, we've spent a lot of time and effort on our lawn. I'm not getting into a hosepipe ban. Report me, I don't care. But again, it's this thing that we've got water shortfall. We've got water shortfall because we haven't built enough reservoirs, and we've got 10 million more people in the country, and we've got a whole load of, people have got power showers. People used to have a little dribbly little thing in the corner. Now people have got a power shower. People, they use water for more, for a lot of the, electronics and things as cooling agents and things. I mean, we're surrounded by water. We have rain half of the year, for goodness sake. For the love of God, we've got enough water. This is just bad water management. There's not an issue, but they make it an issue and then tell us we have to conserve water and, or have a shorter shower. Sod off. I'll have as long a sodding shower as I sodding well want, and I will hosepipe my sodding lawn whenever I sodding well want with water that I pay for. And if you can't provide enough water, sod off and do another job. I'm done with it. I'm just done with it.
And the goal of then trying to push it back on the customer, on the
we've got too many emails. Have you seen the emails? Apparently, if we've deleted our old emails, they're all in the cloud, and they're being and the cloud involves an awful lot of energy, and there's water cooling. So now because I don't purge my inbox, I'm responsible for the lack of reservoirs in this country.
It's absolutely, and we all know this. We all know that they haven't built the infrastructure. There hasn't been the investment. The water companies are a complete joke, and a bad joke. It's like an insult to us. The fact that,
I'd say borderline criminal, some of them.
This is the most straightforward, this is the most straightforward transaction in that you could possibly imagine. We are surrounded by water. There's plenty of water about. We need it. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to run out.
There's no shortage. It's going to carry on raining.
They cannot provide it at a kind of reasonable level. And then when you, again, find that those cracks are starting to show, they tell you off. It's ridiculous. Totally. If only we would stop living like we live in the 21st century. I mean, seriously, it is absolutely mad, but very symptomatic of how our country is run, though. As you say, very symptomatic.